Victory Studios in downtown Little Rock, this is Capitol View.
Welcome to Capitol View. I'm your host, Roby Brock. Thank you for being with us. Election Day 2024 is in the books. The votes are cast. The results are largely known. Donald Trump will be the 47th president of the United States, pulling off a political comeback for the ages. Trump won about 64% of the vote in Arkansas, besting his 2020 showing of 63%, his finish in 2016 at 60%. Chief Justice Karen Baker defeats Rhonda Wood, but Wood remains on the Arkansas Supreme Court. Governor Sarah Sanders will get to fill a vacancy that Baker's victory opens up, and another one that we'll talk about later. In the treasurer's race, Secretary of State John Thurston defeated Democrat John Pagan and Libertarian Michael Packo. So John Thurston, the Republican, will be your new treasurer in January. Issue 1, the Lottery Expansion Amendment, scored about 90% of the vote in its passage. We'll see if we can find anything that 90% of Arkansans agree on. Issue 2, the Pope County Anti-Casino Amendment passed, meaning that casino project in Pope County is ended and a new set of rules will govern how future casinos may be enacted. Time now to turn to our political panel for the fallout and repercussions and highlights. Joining me now is Richard Bearden from Impact Management Group, Michael Cook from Cook Consulting. We got Republican, we got Democrat, we got a lot to talk about, guys. We're going to begin with some state results. In the next block, we'll move on to some national stuff. But I'll come to you first, Richard, since you're grayer than Michael today. What surprised you the most in the Arkansas results, if anything?
You know, I don't know a lot of surprises. I think you mentioned the race for the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. You had two justices, both with justice in front of their name.
Right.
I think in a lot of these counties, people picked maybe who was on the top of the ballot. I think Justice Baker had actually run over a 30-year period, maybe more times than Justice Wood. But, you know, that was just not a race that had a lot of information about it. The lottery, the exact opposite, nearly $30+ million spent on TV and mail campaign. But it's still
in the issue 2.
On issue 2, I'm sorry. Not lottery, the casino amendment. But still, a lot of people not really fully understanding, do I vote yes or no, and what am I voting for? So, again, don't know that there were a lot of surprises. Maybe today after the election, still a lot of confused voters about what they really picked.
What surprised you?
You know, I would echo what Richard had to say. There's not a whole lot of surprises on the Supreme Court race. I'm convinced the reason that Karen Baker won is her name is so common sounding.
Yeah.
And, you know, all these, you know, there's not much ads and people think, did I go to high school with a Karen Baker? You know, it's that simplistic, as crazy as that sounds. But if you're at Newport or El Dorado or you're not keeping up with every little thing on the Supreme Court race.
I'll throw another layer in on that because I heard from from a radio listener when I made that point earlier. She said, you know, I voted for Karen Baker because I didn't like the abortion amendment opinion that Justice Wood issued, and Karen Baker was the dissenting opinion on that. So I think there was at least a chunk out there.
There might have been some of that.
I don't know if it was the difference maker, but it was driving some.
I do a lot of judge races, and sometimes it literally is a name that just sounds common. I know that sounds wild to us political junkies. We read the paper every day, but people who have jobs and they have kids, they don't read every little thing. They just kind of go, I think I know that person, and vote that way.
When we polled it was 70% undecided.
Yeah,
I don't think it came down a lot between then and election day. So.
You know, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other on the casino issue 2. It passed, and some people were happy, some people mad. I think my mistake in life was not owning a casino. I should have somehow gotten one. But,
90% on issue 1 surprises me.
I was happy to hear that.
Maybe 70. I would have maybe 75.
Right.
I would have gone, yeah, that's peak.
I was happy
90.
Good I was Bill Halter's chief of staff, and we ran the lottery campaign and brought that to Arkansas, and the tens of thousands of Arkansas kids that have been helped by the lottery scholarship, and I'm now happy that even more kids are going to be helped by the expansion of the lottery scholarships.
Yeah. Issue 1 didn't surprise you, did it?
The margin did, but again, 90%.
The margin is what surprised me too.
Arkansans.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it was a good thing, by the way. Robin Lundstrom gets a lot of credit for running that.
Yeah. So Governor Sanders is going to get some appointments in January. She gets to appoint a replacement for 2 years to Secretary of State. She gets to do 2 Supreme Court justices conventional wisdom would suggest that Cody Highland moves into the one, because Courtney Hudson won a judicial seat,
Right.
and there will be a vacancy when she vacates in January. So there'll be 2 on the Supreme Court for Governor Sanders, and we'll see who she appoints on those. But she's going to be busy in January with appointments. 1 seat goes to the Democrats, Michael. You guys cut the margin from 82 to 18 to 81-19.
We flipped a seat. I
House.
was happy to see that Diana Gonzalez-Worthen up in the Springdale area was able to defeat an incumbent Republican. So that was a nice win. We haven't increased our majority. We hadn't increased since 20 years ago.
Increased your super minority.
Yeah, exactly.
In a while,
exactly.
so
I mean, still a long way to go. The thing with Democrats in Arkansas, it's going to be a long, slow chipping away process, and this is a nice win for Democrats.
Yeah, I would say too, Richard, they didn't lose any seats this time. The Republicans had some opportunity to pick up a couple seats. Not that 82, 18 or 81-19 is not enough, but
Look, I think the Republican in both the House and the Senate are probably you're probably pretty close to the max right now. This was the first election coming out of a redistricting process. That seat specifically was sort of restructured, heavy Hispanic population up there. A woman of Hispanic lineage won the seat. So maybe not a huge surprise. I think the incumbent Republican Representative Hodges had only won that seat by 50 votes. So it was already a very, very close margin. But after the 2024 election, Republicans still have incumbents, legislators in 3 heavy minority districts: Southeast Arkansas, South Arkansas, and then over Mississippi County. So Republicans are still doing well. I think they only came within 100 votes of losing the seat in Crittenden County, one of the seats in Crittenden County. So Republicans are still very competitive in what used to be known as very heavy Democrat areas of the state.
there were some potential pickup seats for Republicans in some purple districts. Andrew Collins and Ashley Hudson here in Central Arkansas did not receive Republican opposition, and David Whitaker up in South Washington County, South Fayetteville, that's a very purple district. He's a Democrat that
I was surprised that they failed to recruit candidates for those 3 particular seats, and that Democrats, they held on to those 2 seats in Crittenden County. Those were hotly contested.
And Steve McGee in Faulkner
And
County.
Steve McGee,
the man that
he won again.
Exactly.
He won again.
He never seems to be able to lose. So maybe less than 10 votes, it may be less than 100, but he's a survivor. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, come back with Richard Bearden and Michael Cook. We're going to talk some national politics when we come back.
You're watching Capitol View, Sunday morning talk focused on the political scene in Arkansas.
Welcome back to Capitol View. I'm joined by Richard Bearden and Michael Cook. All right, gentlemen, let's talk national politics on this one. We'll let the victor go the spoils here. We'll let Richard answer first here. Trump defeats Harris. 301 to 226 is kind of where it stood last I looked. There might still be one state pending out there. Did Trump win or did Harris lose, Richard?
Look, I think strangely enough, it's a combination of both. She had a very compressed amount of time to run a campaign. But look, I don't think you should underestimate. Donald Trump remade the old Reagan coalition. If you look at the exit polling, Trump wins 54% of Latino Hispanic men, 45% of Hispanic women, 20% of African American men voted for Donald Trump. You look up in Michigan, in Detroit, where again, Democrats expected to take big margins, and the margins are much smaller, which I think was auto workers and union membership. There is a new coalition of Republican voters out there that Donald Trump has recreated, again, very similar to the old Reagan coalition. Again, she had a very short amount of time to run, but I never think she was able to distinguish herself from Joe Biden, President Biden, whose numbers were terrible.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, last thing I'll say, we maybe talk about this a little bit longer if you want, but what they ran on, Donald Trump, it was the economy, stupid, right? And he ran on the economy, the border, those were
eating
big
dogs
issues.
And a lot of other side issues
those
as
were
well.
Side
so,
issues.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think Americans voted on the economy, and they voted on an open border. And, with all due respect to my friend Michael here, the Democrats ran on some sort of issues that just didn't really seem to resonate nationwide. With
All
voters.
right, Michael. Did Trump win? Did Harris lose? I'll give you a chance to counter.
Well, I would echo in terms of, I think it's a combination of factors. I think Vice President Harris, her big problem was Joe Biden, in that, number one, he waited, he should have got out a year ago.
Yeah, if you're going to Monday morning quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he was clearly not up for running for re-election, but yet he held on and didn't, you know, leave the race until about 100 days. So you had a candidate who has to put together a whole campaign, introduce themselves, and do it all within 100 days. At the same time, where people are not wild about where the economy is, that, you know, inflation is touched too high, even though unemployment is down and wages are up, they're just not feeling that their life is where it should be economically. And there were some headwinds that she had to fight. I think Democrats, I think they have failed in terms of having a real message to the working class. I do think that Donald Trump had his message kind of appealed more to the working class. But I'll say this as a larger point, in that, you know, Donald Trump clearly won the popular vote and the Electoral College. But in terms of the long term, if we were having this conversation 4 years ago, it would have been the same thing. You know, Donald Trump lost the Electoral College, Republicans lose the popular vote. This pendulum swings so quickly back and forth in American politics that, you know, who knows what's going to happen in, you know, in 2 years, in 4 years. So I think Democrats need to do some retooling on their messaging, need to have a little better message towards working class voters, and kind of tweak really do better on the cultural issues. But I think in long term, you know, it always swings back and forth in American politics.
Yeah, that swing that you're talking about is the new norm. I mean, it's almost not popular to be an incumbent,
Right.
you know. So it looks at least as of our taping here, for sure Republicans will have control of the U.S. Senate. They may maintain control of the U.S. House. It's trending that way. Mike, I'll come to you first, and then Richard second on this one. What is that good to have your party control all of the levers of the federal government?
Well, now, you know, what's going to happen is, I think, for what the future is going to hold, is that, you know, Trump was talking about all the things that he was going to do. And I think a lot of voters didn't believe him. Oh, he's not going to have mass deportation. He's not going to fire tens of thousands of federal employees. He is going to do this. And now that he has all the levers of power, if the Republicans hold on to the House, I think there will be immediate backlash when we start mass deportations of, some of them will be American citizens. You have all these things that he wants to do in terms of restricting people's rights. You know, what happened after he became president the first time, when there were some guardrails of people around him were like, you can't do that. Now he's going to have a bunch of yes men and women in the White House doing whatever he says, all of the guardrails are off. You know, that's why I think the midterm, again, it's crazy, the election just ended a couple of days ago, but I think the midterm could be like it was in 2018, where Democrats retook control of so many different things.
Yeah, is it good to have all the, in terms of pushing your agenda forward, and is it going to be good for the GOP to not have an enemy on the other side that has enough power to stop you?
Well, I mean, we'll see. Is it good for the Trump presidency? Probably, yes. Look, the stock market the day after the election, it was the highest of the year. So business community, Wall Street certainly has confidence that the economy is going to get back on track, and some of those kind of things.
I honestly think that it would have been that way no matter who won, because the
have
stock
been.
market's been on a tear for over a year. It's been hitting all-time highs.
But it happened when Trump won.
Let's let him finish.
But, you know, the other thing I would say, again, the House is still in balance. We don't know. The Republicans could gain a seat or two. They could only be at where we are now, very close majority in the House. Republicans won 4 Senate seats. You know, the so-called blue wall was torn down, and Republicans win Senate seats in Pennsylvania. We pick up House seats in Pennsylvania. So I think our party had a great night. And again, the bigger piece to me is the sort of configuring of the Republican coalition. Young voters was another that had heavy turnout for the Republican Party across the boards. So, you know, we'll see where things go from here. Hamas, I did see yesterday, said maybe time for a ceasefire. So again.
Right. Got about a minute and a half left. If you want to counter what he just said, there was something you wanted to say.
Well, one thing, as it pertains to the economy, one prediction I'll make is Trump is inaugurated January 20th. that afternoon he's going to be saying, this is the best economy we've ever had. I mean, the strongest economy in the world, even though it's the exact same economy that it is now. That's one thing that Biden didn't do a good job in terms of all of the strong things that have happened because of the policies he put into place. But Trump, of course, will get credit the day he's inaugurated for whatever improvements have been made.
Right. All right, got about 60 seconds left. I just want to make this point, and you guys can give me about a 10-second, 15-second commentary on this. One of the big things with the Republicans taking the U.S. Senate is John Boozman. Looks like he will be the head of the Senate Agriculture Committee if they continue with seniority. Ironically, he ousted the Ag Committee chairman in Blanche Lincoln 15 years ago. That's big for Arkansas, Richard.
Big for Arkansas. I think there's also huge for Senator Boozman, but also there's some opportunities for House members to move up and potentially take some chairmanships and move up in seniority.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I have to agree. It's good for Arkansas that Boozman will be the ag chair. I mean, so that's good for Arkansas farmers and in our economy.
Tariffs may not be good for Arkansas farmers, but John Boozman being there will. All right, Richard Bearden, Michael Cook, thank y'all so much for being here. Appreciate your insight.